No one teaches us to fear death, yet we fear it instinctively. From a very young age, we somehow understand, in a vague and silent way, that death means loss, an end, a disappearance into darkness, the tears of adults, the mourning clothes, the sobbing beside the casket. All these things teach us that death is something sad, cold, and to be avoided. Growing up in a modern society, especially in the West, death is often pushed to the margins. People don't talk about it. It's hidden behind hospital walls, behind the thick glass of funeral homes. Euphemisms replace its name: passed away, at rest, departed, and so, death becomes a stranger, distant, frightening, and hard to accept. This fear is not only social, it runs deep in our biological programming. At the core of every cell, we are wired to want to live at any cost. Death is something the body, the mind, and the ego cannot control. And it is precisely this lack of control that terrifies us. But Buddhism sees death differently. For the spiritual seeker, death is not a catastrophe. It is a natural part of the cycle of life, a necessary chapter in the book of cause and effect. Death, when viewed through the lens of wisdom, is not something to avoid but something to contemplate, to understand, and to prepare for with peace. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are born and die. Impermanence is the nature of existence. Everything arises and fades, flowers bloom and wither, the wind blows and stills. People are born and pass away. If we do not see this truth clearly, we suffer every time something ends. But if we can see death is inevitable, we begin to live differently. We cherish each moment, we love more deeply, forgive more easily, and let go more gently. And when death truly comes, we can greet it with a calm heart, no regret, no resentment, no fear. This first part is an invitation not to stop fearing death right away, but to begin seeing it with new eyes. Not eyes of panic, but eyes of mindfulness. Not a heart clenched with anxiety, but a heart open to truth. Let us walk together from here into a journey of understanding death. Not to run from it, but to live more fully because of it. Life is always changing, never standing still. Every passing second, every breath you take carries endless transformation. In Buddhism, this truth is called impermanence. All phenomena arise and cease, appear and disappear. Understanding and embracing impermanence is the first foundation for inner peace. When we resist it, when we try to hold on to what cannot be held, suffering arises. Attachment is the root of anguish. Perhaps you have experienced moments of loss, a loved one passing away, health declining, job changes, the passing of years. All these are expressions of impermanence. We cannot keep any state forever, cannot cling to a shape, cannot stop time. But viewed through the wisdom of Buddhism, impermanence is no longer an enemy. On the contrary, it is a teacher that helps us live more deeply and cherish each moment more fully. Knowing everything will pass away, we treasure the present more, embracing each breath, each glance, each smile. Impermanence also shows us that we should not cling to a fixed form or a permanent identity. The self we think is solid is actually transient, a flowing stream. Realizing this reduces the fear of death, for death is not total loss, but transformation. Moreover, impermanence opens the door to compassion and forgiveness. When we see that all beings and things are constantly changing, we can more easily open our hearts to ourselves and others, letting go of mistakes and hatred. This is a crucial step toward healing, allowing us to live in peace. In every breath, every present moment, we can witness this truth of impermanence, and from there, practice letting go bit by bit, learning to accept change with serenity. As you read these words, try to notice deeply. Your body is changing, your emotions are shifting, your thoughts are flowing. This endless movement is life itself, and death is an inevitable part of it. Impermanence is not a tragic end, but an invitation to live truthfully, to live fully in every moment. In Buddhist teachings, death is not the final end of existence. Instead, it is seen as a door opening to the next phase in the long cycle of samsara, the endless cycle of birth and death. Understanding this helps us no longer fear death, because we know death is merely a transition, not absolute annihilation. First, we need to understand karma, a central concept in Buddhism. Karma is not a fixed fate, but the result of our actions, words, and thoughts throughout life. Every good or bad deed leaves an imprint on the mind and influences our future. In this life and the next, Karma operates under the law of cause and effect, a just, impartial principle. You reap what you sow. Therefore, we are not victims of destiny but creators of our own fate by choosing right or wrong actions in the present. Samsara is the continuous flow of consciousness, the endless cycle of birth and death. When the physical body dies, consciousness that has not attained liberation moves on to be reborn in another body. Guided by accumulated karma, this cycle can go on indefinitely unless one awakens and attains freedom. Therefore, death is not an end but a door to a new state of existence. It is like a train stopping at the current station before continuing its journey on another carriage. Buddhists view death with calmness, without hatred or pain, because they understand that their journey will continue in another form. This understanding of karma in samsara encourages us to live better and take more responsibility. Because every action affects our future and those around us. With this awareness, we will not easily harm others but instead sow seeds of compassion, love, and peace. Death in Buddhism is a milestone marking the end of one phase but also the beginning of a new journey. Therefore, practitioners do not cling to the body or fear death but see it as an opportunity to renew the mind and prepare for a purer rebirth. Furthermore, Buddhism teaches that the path out of samsara is nirvana, a state beyond birth and death. Free and peaceful, but to reach it, we must live many lives, learning and practicing step by step, gradually letting go of greed, anger, and ignorance. Thus, death is not despair but part of a learning process, a test for us to move closer to ultimate liberation. Daily Buddhist practice helps us live mindfully and prepare for death with peace in the heart. You may have never heard or find it hard to accept the ideas of rebirth or karma in modern life. But think of it this way. What you sow today is the foundation for your future, not only in the material world but also in the spiritual world, in how you perceive and live this life. Therefore, death is not the final point but a transition, a door opening to new possibilities. When we realize this, we no longer live in fear but with deep gratitude, cherishing every present moment. The journey of understanding karma and samsara is the journey of understanding oneself, understanding life, and preparing the soul for departure with lightness and peace. In modern life, death is often considered taboo. People avoid talking about it, avoid thinking about it, and when it arrives, it often comes with panic, pain, or regret. But in the light of Buddhist wisdom, death is not something to avoid, it is a natural and essential part of life. If we prepare properly, we can die like an awakened being departing with a peaceful, free, and clear mind. Mindfulness or present awareness is the key to learning the art of dying peacefully. When our mind is not caught in fear, regret, or anger, we will not panic in the face of death. Instead, we can touch each final moment of our life with deep serenity. Like a flower blooming one last time before falling gently to the earth, we live in quiet beauty. Dying mindfully is not something that happens in an instant. It is the result of an entire life lived with mindfulness. Every conscious step, every mindful word, every aware action is preparation for that final moment. If you live awake, you will not be surprised by death. You will simply recognize, this is also part of the river of life. Perhaps what scares most people about death is regret for things undone, for people not fully loved, for dreams left unfulfilled. But if we live each day fully, live each moment deeply, death cannot take anything away. Because the most important thing, full presence, we have already lived. Practicing Buddhists often prepare for death as a great spiritual journey. They do not try to avoid it but train their minds to embrace it gently. Some chant, others meditate, while some simply stay present through each breath, each pain, each weakening moment of the body. Every dying moment is an opportunity to let go of ego, to prepare for the next transition. In Eastern cultures, especially in Buddhist-influenced countries like Tibet, Bhutan, or Japan, preparing for death is a sacred part of life. They don't just learn how to die but learn how to live in a way that allows them to die beautifully, without regret, without sorrow, without hatred. And then, something magical happens. When you learn how to die mindfully, you also learn how to live more deeply. Death is no longer a dark void at the end of the road, but a door that opens to the dawn of another life. Mindfulness illuminates the journey like a quiet, enduring flame lighting the way through the darkness. The Buddha once said, "Live as if today were your last." This is not a push to rush. but a reminder to live with full presence so that when the final moment arrives, there is nothing to regret. Passing mindfully is the final gift we can give to ourselves and our loved ones. A peaceful death leaves behind traces of love, wisdom, and gentle continuation in the hearts of the living. It doesn't close, it opens. Nothing tears the human heart like parting. When a loved one passes away, we feel as if a part of ourselves has vanished. The pain of those who remain is often quiet, difficult to express, and can last for years. It is a loss that cannot be filled, a silent space between memory and the present. But Buddhism does not teach us to run away from that pain. On the contrary, the Buddha teaches that within pain, if we look deeply, there lies an opportunity for healing. Pain does not need to be pushed away. It needs to be acknowledged and embraced, like a child crying out for its mother. Pain simply wants to be understood. When we avoid pain, we unknowingly close the doors of our hearts. But when we slow down, sit still, and gently smile at the emotions rising within us, healing begins. That is the first step to healing from within. The Buddha taught that all things are impermanent. Everything that arises will pass away. Nothing lasts forever. No one stays forever. But understanding impermanence is not to despair, it is to learn to love more deeply in each fleeting moment. When we see the impermanent nature of life, we stop clinging and begin to cherish every glance, every smile, every moment we still have. When a loved one passes away, it may feel like everything falls apart, but if we sit in stillness and look deeply, we realize they have not truly gone. They remain in every memory, in the words they once spoke, in the way we walk, talk, and live. Their warmth has not disappeared, it has become a part of us. Look closely and you'll see, they are still here, but in a different form. Mindfulness allows us to touch pain without being drowned in it. Instead of trying to forget those who passed, we learn to invite them back through our mindful presence. Each time we light incense, chant a sutra, or simply sit in silence and remember them with love, we continue their presence within us. In Buddhist traditions, there are rituals to honor the deceased, not only to say goodbye, but to renew our spiritual connection with them. Memorial ceremonies are not merely religious customs, but tools to help the living transform their grief, let go of attachment, and send loving energy to those who have departed. One vital teaching in Buddhism is, no one truly dies. Life does not vanish, it transforms. Just like a cloud does not die, it becomes rain, then seeps into the earth, nourishes trees, and eventually evaporates to become clouds again. Our loved ones are like that. They may leave their physical form, but their living energy continues in us and around us. If we look at death through the lens of impermanence and non-self, we see that grief is natural, but we don't need to remain trapped in it forever. We may cry, but we can also move forward, not because we forget, but because we are continuing to live for both ourselves and for them. The way we live after loss is how we answer the love they left behind. If we live with anger and prolonged sorrow, we let pain continue. But if we learn to transform, care for ourselves, and live beautifully, we are continuing their story in a new form. Buddhism teaches that every emotion, joy or sorrow, is a guest. We need not drive sadness away, only welcome it with compassion. Sitting quietly with sadness, breathing with pain, we will see it slowly dissolve like morning mist under the light of mindfulness. Departing is part of life, and those who remain can learn to let go, not to forget, but to be free. In that letting go, we do not lose our loved ones, we find ourselves again, deeper, stronger, more compassionate. In the Buddha's teachings, death is not the end, it is a doorway to transformation. Life is not a straight line from birth to death, but a continuous cycle of dependent origination, karma, and rebirth. When the body disintegrates, consciousness does not vanish, it continues its journey, carrying the seeds of all actions, thoughts, and energies cultivated throughout this life. Rebirth is not a vague belief, but a natural process governed by karma and the continuity of consciousness. Just as a flame from one candle lights another, the stream of consciousness leaves the body and, guided by karma, takes form in a realm that corresponds to the moral and mental energy accumulated. This is not to instill fear, but to awaken responsibility to live mindfully in every moment. In this cycle of samsara, death is not the end of all possibilities. On the contrary, it marks a transition, the beginning of a new path. And in that journey, the departed need compassion, the light of wisdom, and spiritual support from the living to move forward with ease. Why is this needed? Because not all who pass away do so in peace. Some leave with regret, anger, fear, or worry, like a kite that's lost its strain. Their consciousness may drift aimlessly. That is why those who remain with mindfulness, prayers, and compassion can generate waves of healing energy to help them release attachments and enter their next life more peacefully. Here, the Dharma offers a perspective full of hope and initiative. Death is not the end, but the chance for a new beginning. The departed not only continue their journey, but also leave behind a profound lesson for the living that life is finite. And we must live it fully, meaningfully, and lovingly. Understanding this changes the way we live. We no longer postpone love. We no longer let petty misunderstandings fracture our relationships. We recognize that every moment together is precious. For tomorrow one of us may be gone, and we will not want to leave behind unsaid words, unoffered apologies, or hugs left incomplete. Death, in the light of the Dharma, is a bell of awakening. It reminds us to pause and reflect. How are we living? What seeds are we planting for tomorrow? For future lives, are we living with compassion and understanding, or merely avoiding suffering? Understanding rebirth is liberating. It helps us overcome our fear of death, and empowers us to live fully. Instead of dwelling in regret or judgment, we transform ourselves daily through simple acts, a kind word, forgiveness, a smile, a mindful breath. The Buddha never demanded blind belief in rebirth. He invited us to contemplate with wisdom. Look at nature, the endless cycle of life. A seed sprouts, becomes a tree, drops leaves, decays, and becomes compost to nourish new seeds. Humans are no different. Consciousness, upon leaving the body, seeks a new form based on its karmic imprint. Like a student moving to a new grade, the next life reflects the learnings, actions, and choices of the previous one. Rebirth is not punishment or reward, it is a continuation, a new opportunity to deepen compassion, wisdom, and liberation. Thus, the departed never truly leave us. They are on their path, but we can walk beside them through spiritual practice. Every mindful step, every conscious breath, every prayer is a bridge connecting the two realms. And if someone asks, how do I know where my loved one has gone? Buddhism offers no precise map, but the Buddha taught that if someone lived with a kind heart, sowed wholesome seeds, then even without knowing their exact location, we can trust they are on a bright path. What matters most is not where they are, but how we live in a way that honors the love they gave and continues their beautiful qualities. When we live like this, they are not gone, they live on in every act we do. Like a river continuing the ocean, rebirth, seen through the lens of the Dharma, does not frighten, it inspires. It brings hope to those who passed, and to those who remain. For life does not end in a grave, it continues in every mindful step. In every loving moment, and in every prayer bathed in light, there lies a deep-rooted fear within the human heart, the fear of death. We may not speak of it, may not admit it, yet it quietly influences our decisions, our relationships, and our way of living. Death, something inevitable, is also something few dare to truly face. But through the lens of the Dharma, it is clear. We fear death because we do not fully understand its nature. In the Buddha's teachings, death is simply one phenomenon within the unceasing flow of existence. All conditioned things are impermanent. Whatever arises must also pass away. With true understanding, we cease to view death as a tragedy or disaster, but recognize it as a natural continuation in the journey of life. The Buddha said, impermanence is the nature of all phenomena. One who sees impermanence sees the Dharma. To fear death, then, is to resist impermanence, to try and hold on to what cannot be held. We don't just fear losing our lives, we fear losing what we love, family, possessions, status, and health. But when we understand that nothing truly belongs to us forever, parting no longer terrifies. Buddhism offers no lullaby about eternal life. Instead, the Dharma calls us to wake up to the truth of impermanence. And from that awareness, to live deeply, sincerely, and fully in the present, rather than living in anxiety about death. We learn to live each breath as if it were our last. In doing so, we truly begin to live. Transcending the fear of death is a practice, not a one-time realization. First, we must face the fear. Ask yourself, what exactly do I fear about death? Is it pain, being forgotten, separation from loved ones, unfinished tasks? Naming our fear is the first step in weakening its grip. Next, we practice letting go, releasing our attachments, our identities, our clinging to ego. When the mind clings to body, fame, wealth, or social roles, death becomes a loss. But when we live with openness and understand that all things arise through conditions and cease, death becomes a transformation, not a destruction. A powerful Buddhist practice to face fear is death contemplation. Reflecting on death as a natural part of life. Instead of avoiding it, we spend quiet moments contemplating our own passing. We imagine a time when our body no longer breathes, when loved ones must say goodbye, not to create sorrow, but to awaken mindfulness, because that moment will come. How should I live today? Truly and wisely. Another deep practice is meditative letting go, in which we, in meditation, release layer after layer of attachment to the body, to emotions, to thoughts, to identity. As the mind becomes familiar with non-clinging, it learns how to let go even in the moment of death. Longtime practitioners of the Dharma often do not fear death. They face it calmly, like greeting a guest long expected. They prepare by living fully each day, cultivating compassion, planting good seeds, and building noble connections. They do not live to get ready to die, but to prepare for liberation. In many Buddhist traditions, especially Vajrayana and Pure Land, there are specific practices for the dying moment. Chants, mantras, visualization practices help stabilize consciousness and guide it toward a peaceful, enlightened realm. Preparing for death, then, is an integral part of mindful living. And here lies the miracle. When fear of death fades, we begin to truly live. We live not to accumulate, but to give, not to defend the ego, but to open to life. We live as if each day is a miracle, no longer bound by past or pulled by future. Each moment becomes sacred. If death is a teacher, its lesson is this: don't wait, love while you can, forgive while it matters. Live as if tomorrow you might be gone, not in despair, but in fullness. And when you've lived this way, death comes as a final breath, gentle, without regret, without fear. To transcend fear of death is not to erase it, but to walk through it with mindfulness and wisdom. That is the great gift of the Dharma, to help us live beautifully and leave peacefully. Imagine waking up one morning and knowing for certain that you only have a few days or weeks left to live. It's no longer hypothetical, no longer a distant concept. Death is right in front of you, appearing like an old friend come to take you home. How would you spend your remaining days? That question, though it may sound grim, is actually one of the most profound tools of awakening that the Buddha's teachings offer. Because only when death feels close, do we truly see life with clarity and honesty. Only then do we realize what truly matters, what is trivial, and only then do we find the courage to let go, to love, to forgive, and to live fully. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha spoke about the practice of mindfulness of death as a powerful method to cultivate awareness and wisdom. He taught, always remember death as your companion, for it can arrive at any time, like a thief in the night. But rather than frightening us, this truth wakes us up. Time is more precious than gold. And every breath is an opportunity to live meaningfully. If you knew you had little time left, would you still hold grudges? Would you stay trapped in past regrets, pointless worries, or petty conflicts? Or would you sit down, smile, take your loved one's hand, and say what you had long postponed? A practitioner of the Dharma understands that death is not an end, but a transformation. So when death draws near, there is no panic, no desperate clinging. Instead, we return to what matters most: mindfulness, compassion, and gratitude. Every moment still lived becomes a step toward awakening. If we live with awareness, there are those who, upon learning of their approaching death, begin writing thank you letters to everyone they've encountered in life. Some choose to use their remaining days to share wisdom, to spread kindness. Others sit quietly in meditation, palms joined before the Buddha, releasing each layer of illusion. Every path becomes a sacred preparation of farewell made in mindfulness. The Buddha did not ask us to become superhuman or to escape the world. He simply invited us to be real with ourselves, with our feelings, and with others. And death, when received without fear, becomes a natural part of that truth. It is no longer an end, but a doorway opening into another state, another journey, depending on the clarity of mind at the moment of passing. One of the most important questions a dying person might ask is, have I lived true to my heart? The answer is not found in achievements, status, or bank accounts. It is found in honesty, in love, in compassion, and in the willingness to let go. If death is the final mirror reflecting our life, can we look into it with peace and smile? But we need not wait until death is near to learn how to live. Each day that passes is an opportunity to live as if it were our last. With this mindset, even the smallest actions gain depth. A hug, a thank you, a quiet moment with a loved one all become sacred. The Dharma teaches us a profound truth. Life is not measured by years, but by the quality of our awareness. Some may live 80 years in delusion, others may live only 30. But every day is radiant. The difference lies in this. Were they mindful? Therefore, whether death comes at age 45, 65, or 85, if we have lived with an open heart and clear mind, there is no fear. We smile, greet death like an old friend, and step into the next journey with lightness. In life, we spend so much time holding on to loved ones, to dreams, to status, possessions, and reputation. We cling to old memories, lingering sadness, unresolved anger, and yet, ironically, the very things we cling to often causes the most suffering. Then, when death draws near, life invites us to learn its final, most powerful lesson: letting go. Letting go is not giving up. It is the act of a mindful person, one who understands that nothing is truly theirs forever. Such a person does not resist or resent, but releases gently, like a flower petal carried by the wind. The Buddha taught that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. Beauty fades, youth ages, life ends. Understanding this isn't meant to make us pessimistic, but to help us live fully. Because knowing all will pass, we cherish what we have more deeply. And when death comes, we are not panicked or regretful. We leave peacefully, like one who has completed a long journey. Those who cannot let go at the moment of death often suffer greatly. Sorrow over leaving loved ones, regret for things undone, guilt over past mistakes. These states of mind lead to a restless passing and influence the realm into which one will be reborn. In contrast, those who have practiced letting go are serene, their hearts light as clouds. But letting go doesn't happen overnight. It is the fruit of long practice. That is why the Buddha encouraged daily mindfulness to help us live consciously and gradually loosen our attachments. We can start today. Let go of an unnecessary expectation. Release a lingering resentment. Forgive yourself for past errors. Look at someone you once resented with fresh eyes. Every act of letting go is an act of freedom. And freedom is the greatest gift when death arrives. Many Zen masters teach, dying is not painful. The pain lies in clinging. When the heart still grasps, death becomes heavy. But when the heart is open, empty of clinging, death is simply a transition as gentle as a leaf falling from a tree. Imagine you're on a boat crossing the river of life. At some point, you must leave the boat to step onto a new shore. If your hands still clutch old baggage, fear, regret, what ifs, you cannot move forward. Only when you let go can you walk freely toward the light. And remember, letting go isn't just for the dying. It's the art of everyday living. Every morning, if you can see life through the eyes of letting go, your heart will feel lighter. You don't need to control everything, win every argument, or prove your worth through possessions. You just need to be present, to love, and to breathe in mindfulness. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, better than 1,000 victories in battle is the victory over yourself. The one who lets go has conquered themselves. Because, at the end of life, nothing accompanies us except the state of our mind. If it is full of anger, resentment, and regret, the next journey will be burdensome. But if it is clear, gentle, and loving, then death becomes the gateway to a peaceful realm. So let us learn to let go. Starting today, let us live as if each day were a preparation for death, not in fear, but in fullness. Let every action, every word, every thought be guided by compassion and mindfulness. For we do not know what tomorrow brings. But if we release today, tomorrow will be light. After all the reflections on death, fear, impermanence, letting go, and compassion, we return to the most essential question. What is death, really? To those unfamiliar with Buddhist teachings, death is often seen as a full stop, the end of a body, the disappearance of a loved one, a cold and hopeless finale. But through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, death is not an end. It is a transition, like the sun that sets in the west and rises again in the east. The departure of a living being is not a disappearance, it is a passage into a different form of existence. Consciousness, the subtle energy of mind, does not vanish. It merely leaves the old body, like a traveler leaving an inn to continue their longer journey. Death is a door, not a wall. But if our mind is afraid, resisting, and clouded in ignorance, we perceive that door as a terrifying void. However, when our mind is trained in mindfulness, compassion, and release, that door opens into light. Death ceases to be an enemy and becomes a guide leading us home. Imagine life as a river. Death is merely the moment we leave the old boat to step onto a new shore, a place where the body's pain is no longer present, where suffering releases its grip. And this new shore is not some vague oblivion. For one with awakened insight, it is a return, a reunion of consciousness with the boundless light of awareness, the still, unborn, undying state of nirvana. Therefore, fear of death is not natural, it is the product of ignorance. We fear because we do not know where we are going, what we will become, what we will lose. But the Buddha taught, he who knows how to live no longer fears dying, because to truly live is to live mindfully, gratefully, lovingly, and with a capacity to let go. When we live this way each day, each hour, death becomes just a gentle transition, like changing old clothes, like a petal falling from a spring flower. The wise do not wait for death to prepare. They live each day as if it might be their last, not out of despair, but out of deep reverence for the present. They speak kind words while they can. They forgive while there is still time. They live simply, sincerely, and accumulate little, so that nothing burdens their heart when it's time to let go. Such people, when death arrives, smile, for they know, I am not gone. I have only changed form. I was the cloud, and now I return as rain. I was the wave, and now I return to the ocean. This is not merely poetic. It can be real if we start today, practicing, meditating, cultivating compassion, learning to release little by little, day by day. Pause now, feel this breath. Inhale, you are alive. Exhale, you still have the chance to love, to understand, to forgive. Every breath is a gift. And one day, when the final breath comes, may it be a breath of peace, free from fear or regret. We cannot avoid death, but we can choose how we face it. We can die in panic or in presence. We can leave in darkness or step into the light. Buddhism does not promise you will never suffer, never fall ill, never die, but it gives you the strength to face, the wisdom to understand, and the compassion to hold yourself gently through it all. That is the greatest gift, not immortality but peace in every moment of living and dying. Live today as if you might leave tomorrow, not to be afraid, but to live completely. Speak love, release the unnecessary, and see everything with the eyes of one who understands. Death is not the end. It is the beginning of a new journey, a return to the eternal source of light.